My journey up the Thames had ended in a fabulous late evening sail across the mouth of the Medway and into Stangate Creek, where I planned to spend a quiet night. I can never understand why people watch the sunset from a mooring or an anchor when they could sail through it. Why have one view of the sunset when you can have 100 or 1,000?
I'm going to move from Stangate Creek here. I had a lovely night here, absolutely peaceful. I love this place. Across to Brightlingsea today, and I've got to kind of wobble my way through all those swatchways and deeps with the weird names like Wallet and Knob End and so on. It would have been very hard to do in the past because you'd have to go from buoy to buoy to buoy, whereas now, with the help of little GPS, I've got a list of 10 buoys to get past. North Swatch, Medway, Sea Reach, Southwest Barrow, Maplin, South Whittaker, Wallet Spitway, Knoll, Cone Bar, Brightlingsea. As the crow flies, or maybe as the seagull flies, that's 29 miles. I've got to wobble round a fair bit.
I'd worked out that I could ride the ebb tide most of the way across the maze of channels and mud banks that make up the Thames Estuary. The forecast was calling for a southwesterly force 3 or 4. Should have been perfect. At the time, I clearly thought that 10 waypoints was really overdoing it. In retrospect, I should have put more time and effort into my passage planning. After leaving the Medway for the last time and passing the magnificent Palmerston Fort, complete with Coast Guard station on the roof, I turned east along the Kent coast, against the last of the flood tide. The first and possibly last significant landmark for my Thames crossing is a relic of the Second World War. Behind me is the wreck of a ship called the Montgomery. It was a Liberty ship sent from America. America made thousands of these things. They were building them faster than the Germans could sink them, and they brought supplies to the UK. It's what kept this country afloat. Thanks, Americans, it's very good of you. Almost 3,000 were built between 1941 and 1945. All to the same design, 450 feet long and 14,000 tonnes apiece. Cargo capacity was rated at 10,000 tonnes, but they were frequently overloaded. The ships had a top speed of a stately 11 knots and a crew of 41. They really were the transit van of the high seas. And they were using welded seams rather than rivets, and a large part of the workforce were, heaven forfend, women. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a design fault, and they often developed nasty cracks. At least 2 of them suddenly and unexpectedly broke their backs and sank in mid-Atlantic. The Montgomery had an impressively scary cargo that included 240 mustard gas bombs, which I thought us and the Americans had agreed not to use during the Second World War. Shows what a treaty's worth. The ship was ordered to anchor in a 30-foot deep channel off Sheerness, but she dragged her anchor, went aground and broke her back. Some of the deadly cargo was unloaded in the first 2 weeks, but then it was decided to leave it there for other generations to deal with. And it's still full of ammunition. The suggestion is that one day it'll blow. They don't know when, they don't know what'll spark it off. Could be anything, but there will be quite a big wave work its way up to London if it goes. But you can see how well buoyed it is. They've really tried to make sure that people don't run into it. But it is right between 2 shipping lanes. The shipping lanes that come into the Medway and into London, all the ships pass within yards of this wreck. It's not good. Several ships have strayed into the area, and one actually knocked some of the superstructure off, but so far she hasn't gone. If she does blow, It'll be the biggest non-nuclear man-made explosion ever. Don't buy a house in Sheerness. Then the tide turned, and I set off along my less than carefully planned track.
Been going for a couple of hours now. Engine's been on and off. The tide, up until just half an hour or so ago, was against me. Now it's with me. So things should get better. The sea state should get smoother. I'm just passing a buoy called Sea Reach, and the next one is West Barrow, which is 6 miles away. We're doing 4 knots through the water, and we're doing 4.3 knots over the ground. So the wind and the sea are sending me in the same direction. I'm on a little reach here. Boat's going very nicely. Now that the sea's levelled out a bit, the boat goes better. The trouble is, because it's basically got a motorboat hull, as soon as it comes across any waves, it just kind of tries to punch its way through, which it can't. It doesn't do a very good job.
By lunchtime the wind had strengthened and swung round to the north, and before long there I was again. Motor on, wind on the nose, bashing through the waves. Then I started to get lost.
It's been quite windy and the waves have been quite frightening, and I was going along fine. And I just checked to see how deep it was, and I'd only got 1.5 metres underneath me. It is amazing the way you can stray out of the channels, and the buoys are not that close together. I'd forgotten how hard it was to navigate around here. I used to race around these buoys and we were always getting lost. I'm trying to get into the River Crouch, and that's its entrance ahead of me. The land is so low-lying, there are no discernible features. There is the mouth of the river ahead of me somewhere, but I can't do it. I'm just going in from buoy to buoy.
I got lost 3 times, and at one point found myself 8 miles from land on a falling tide with less than 18 inches of water under the keels, and no real idea as to where the channel I'd just lost was supposed to be. Clearly, I'm not the navigator I thought I was.
And I've been motoring for quite a long time just now, and it was about 1.5 metres. So I would say that my navigation isn't up to scratch. I think I'm reasonably certain now that I have crossed the Thames, one of the hardest navigational jobs in the UK, apparently. That's if you're going to do it right. I guess I did it wrong. However, I'm nearly there. The tide has turned and the wind has shifted a little bit round to the west. So I'm able to fetch into Brightlingsea. It's good to be back. Very nice to be back in Brightlingsea. I'm looking forward to coming round the corner.